Dave from the Dave Forsyth Band. Today I'm covering off amplifiers. Doesn't matter how high a quality amplifier you have or how much you use it or don't use it, the volume knobs and the tone controls get really scratchy and dirty. You can buy a cleaner quite often that you can spray in there and will actually help it at times. In the case of this particular amplifier, they've been cleaned too many times, it doesn't work, and a couple of them are actually broken off. So I'm going to cover off today actually replacing these volume and tone controls. You'll see that it's actually not hard. You don't need a lot of tools to do it, and it can save your favorite amplifier or even just a little workhorse like this one that you might have kicking around. First tools that I'm going to discuss that we need are a couple of screwdrivers, because in the inside here there's a couple of screws that you need to take out, and you also need one of these adjustable pliers, but you can use a socket set if you want. I'm a little scared about socket sets on these because you can over tighten these nuts when you're putting them back on and be back into the same problem as we have right here. Now, as you notice, these are all loose. You just need to be able to grab a hold of that nut, spin it off, and I've taken all the others off to speed up the process, and I've taken the screws out of the inside. So you can see that it's actually really not that hard a job. Got to watch these little washers though, because they can disappear on you in a big hurry. Okay, so there's that off. This thing will then literally slide out, and there's all the parts. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a soldering gun and a product called solder wick. There's several ways you can do this. I'm using the solder wick way because I have it and it's easy for me to do. Notice along here, these are the controls that we're taking out, and they all have 3 connections that are soldered in. The control itself, those are the connections that we're going to be soldering. What we're going to do is we're going to take a soldering gun at a fairly good temperature, and we're going to run it with this solder wick along these joints till the solder loosens off and we can pull this out and clean that connection. We're going to pop another one in and solder it into place. The soldering gun you use for this is actually probably the most important tool that you're going to use. You can get a reasonably inexpensive one to do this, but you need to treat it properly. What you do is you take the tip, just a standard sponge, but I've got the sponge wet. Just run your soldering gun across the sponge, and you'll notice how my soldering gun just became very shiny. That's what you need. You need a nice clean tip. If it's not tinned, you literally take your solder and you re-tin it by just taking and just putting a little bit of solder on that tip like that, and doing exactly the same thing again. That's what they call a tinned soldering gun. So if yours doesn't have a shiny tip, make sure you just do that little trick and you'll be good to go. This solder wick, it's called Prowick. It's reasonably inexpensive to get. As you can see, I've used it. The other tool you need is a little cutting tool. I'm going to separate that off. We'll get a nice fresh piece. And we're going to take the soldering gun for our very first broken one, which is this one. And we're going to heat that up against this solder wick. And you'll notice that the solder will get sucked up into this wick. You have to do this to all 3 of them. Try not to get any of the other parts while you're at it. And that thing comes out, see? Now I go over and I clean the holes up so that it's easy to put the new one back in. Now you got to make sure when you're looking at the pot, this one says right on it that it's a 50K pot. It's very important that you replace it with another 50K pot. You don't want to make the mistake of putting in the wrong value. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and set that in the holes, heat up the hole. There's it sticking through. And I'm going to take my solder and I'm going to solder it in. Same thing, you heat the contact and the post. Make sure that you get a nice even heat across both of them. again, I'm heating both. I've got the soldering gun up against the post while touching the contact underneath the foil. And then I just touch it with the solder so you see it flow nicely. And there you have it. That's a brand new pot. That one's not going to scratch. You'll notice the new ones have little brackets on them that we actually had to take off because there's nowhere to actually mount them on this particular board. I would have preferred to have used them and made it a little more solid when you mount these, but unfortunately there was too many circuit board pieces in there, so we couldn't actually do that. But just got to be very careful that you don't break the circuit board itself. That's the main part in this. And clean up all the old solder. Whatever you do, don't use one of those big old soldering guns when doing this. You'll just tear apart the circuit board if you do and wreck your favorite amplifier. Get a nice little pencil one. They're not real expensive. You can pick them up at pretty much all the hardware stores. And And there you have it. The amplifier is working. You hear no noises that shouldn't be there, and all the volume controls for this channel are all up and running and doing what they're supposed to do. All it took to take this thing apart, take this out, was take the 2 leads off the speaker cabinet, take the 4 screws on the top and 1 on the side. The whole thing slid out the back. Was easy to work on, as you saw. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel. There's lots more there, along with the music that we play. We've got some decor videos, some parrot videos with our gorgeous little parrot Charlie. If you had any questions at all, I'll try my best to answer them for you. Thank you very much. There are many more videos on the Dave Forsyth Band channel, so please come on over and subscribe. We've got a few new ones coming up real quick, along with a few live feeds, so don't forget to check back regularly.